And welcome to this GCS and Amec event. This is part of Measurement Month. The Government Communications Service is involved in quite a number of initiatives during Measurement Month, which is running throughout September. And this week, Measurement Month is in Europe, so hence we have a number of activities going on this week. So do watch out for those and visit the Amec website and the GCS website for more information on those. A couple of housekeeping points before we get stuck in, so please just turn your mobiles to silent. There's no fire drills scheduled for today, so if there is an alarm, we have the fire signs that are green, one to your left, one to your right, and one behind me. Today's event, as you'll see from the title, is all about government communications and social analytics specifically, and what role that has to play in evaluation. Today we are very privileged. We've got the 5 suppliers on the new Crown Commercial Services website framework, and they are set up as you'll have seen behind you here, and we will spend some of our time today going and hearing what they have to offer in terms of their platforms and services. Also today, we're going to have the privilege of hearing from Director of Communications, Sean Larkins, who's joined us, Paul Njoku from Cabinet Office, and by video, Alex Aitken, who is the Executive Director of Government Communications. I think this is a great time to do an event like this. The Crown Commercial Services framework was only launched a few months ago, so I know some of you will be new to it, so I hope you find today very helpful and very practical. This framework gives us 5 suppliers to choose from for social analytics who are the best in the market. They've gone through a really rigorous, robust tender process to be selected, and hence why they're all here today. So please do take advantage of this time to ask the right questions and to find out more on what would help from your own organisation's perspectives. You'll see from the front of the lectern here, we've got a hashtag today, which is AMEC for Amec Measurement Month, and beneath it the Wi-Fi password, which you'll need if you want to connect to our Wi-Fi. You will probably see Matt at the back, who is periscoping this. We're very high-tech and cutting-edge here at DEFRA, so we're periscoping this, and the link will go out on the Amec.org Twitter account, so do watch that, again using the same hashtag. So to run through the suppliers we've got behind you, we've got Meltwater over here to your right. Slightly behind and to the right, we have Precise. Behind and in the middle, it's Brandwatch, also known as Runtime Collective, if you look at the tender document. OConnor in the corner, and then LexisNexis with the red sign behind over near the cafe. What we're going to spend the bulk of time today, between 2:30 and 3:45, is asking you to split into groups and to go to the key suppliers that you want to hear from. You'll hear from them from 10 minutes, and then you'll have 5 minutes to ask some questions. And then we'll ask you to sort of move around, try to get everyone to see each supplier and to get as much information as you can and get the best out of today. But it's not as easy as that. We are going to ask you some questions, not a test, but we are going to ask you some questions afterwards. We are going to be looking for you to contribute to some work that Paul Njoku is leading for Cabinet Office and GCS about key metrics that we should all be using and are most important for our social analytics across government. So with that in mind, I'm going to hand straight over to the Director of Communications, Sean Larkins, who's kindly joined us today, who'll talk to us a little bit more about his view.
Thanks very much, Elaine. Firstly, good afternoon. Welcome to DEFRA. It's great to see some familiar faces here and some new faces as well. And I'd particularly like to thank all of our suppliers that have come along today to give their support. As Elaine has said, I'm Sean Larkins. I'm Group Director of Communications for DEFRA. And until recently, I was Deputy Director of Government Communications. It may seem quite odd to be here at DEFRA. Firstly, some terrible acoustics for which I apologise. I don't think we're expecting rain today, but if it does rain, it's a Perspex roof. It gets very noisy. It sounds like the whole building is about to collapse. It will not collapse, so please don't be alarmed. But also, why are we here at DEFRA talking about social media evaluation? We're the Ministry of Cakes and Cows and Milk, so what's social evaluation got to do with us? Well, actually we're home to the largest number of data sets across government, and we're starting to lead the way in open data. Over the next year or so, we're going to be making over 8,000 data sets available to the public and to businesses, and it's really important for us to make use of all of the data we have. Not just that data that's generated within DEFRA, but also data that's generated outside of DEFRA. We need to measure We need to share, we need to make the most of everything we do, and that's why we are very pleased to support Amec's Measurement Month. One of the legacies from my previous role in the GCS is the new Crown Commercial Service Social Analytics Framework. It's something we're really very proud of. They are really great agencies and we're looking forward to working with them. But also, perhaps just as importantly, there really is now no excuse, if ever there was an excuse, to not be monitoring the impact that we're having online. And I just want to outline briefly what's really important here and where social analytics fit in. I don't know whether anybody saw this. This was an article on the GCS website from about 2 weeks ago. The government communications plan launched earlier this year outlined over £330 million worth of savings for the taxpayer that we had made through more efficient communications. Now that's set against 2009-2010 baseline. Evaluation has a very key play to part in proving what works and what doesn't. And this is a really exciting field of work where we get to make a difference to not just the future of our own organisations, but the future of government communications, and also the future of communications in the digital era. Making communications more efficient, doing more of what works well, and doing less of what doesn't work well. We absolutely need to be clear of where we add value. So social is an important part of evaluation work. It's real time. It allows us to act quickly. It collages large volumes of conversations that we have with citizens and with the public. It means that we can draw some conclusions really quickly. It means that we can find out what stakeholders are saying and respond accordingly. It also helps us tell our story internally. I think too often some of our policy colleagues think of communications as nothing more than a glorified press office. Actually, social media feedback enables us in real time to demonstrate the impact of what we are having on the delivery of policy priorities, and that's really important in terms of our relationship, not just with our policy colleagues, but with ministers as well. But don't worry, I'm not suggesting that we have to evaluate everything and every metric that are available from our suppliers today. I always feel quite clever or intelligent when I quote this gentleman here. Not everything that can be counted counts, or not everything that counts can be counted. And Albert Einstein was absolutely right on that. This is a particularly important thing when tracking and reporting on social analytics. It doesn't have to be complicated, which is just as well. If you're like me and you're a communicator, I tend to be very good on words and pictures and colours and not very good on numbers. So if I can actually make sense of social analytics, then I think anybody can. But it is really important that we choose our metrics carefully, with our policy and communications objectives in mind, and it just so happens we have a GCS model for that, which I think we'll talk about a little bit later on. In fact, it's a model I now use in my everyday life. We are the Department for Food after all. It's GBBO season. Very disappointed at some of the results last night. But if I'm making cupcakes, for example, it's not just about outputs, how many cupcakes I've made. It's not just about the outtakes, how good they look. It's about the outcomes, how tasty they are. So I'm making some parallels with what we're doing here within my own life as well. And Paul will talk shortly in more detail about the tools and about the support that's available from the GCS. But the important thing is not just to track our metrics. It's about to listen to them and to act upon them. We had some recent research done by Professor Jim McNamara from the University of Technology in Sydney. We contributed to it across GCS. And it showed that both public and private sector organisations like to think of themselves as listening organisations. But when you looked at their actual behaviour, it turned out, particularly in the public sector, we're broadcasting messages 80% of the time, and we're listening only 20% of the time. And I get terribly, terribly frustrated when we put time, effort and resources into tracking sentiment, for example, and we don't really learn from the insight that it gives us. We are working in challenging and changing times, as you can see. I won't go through that in detail, but all of these points apply equally to social as any other form of communication channel, and we must ruthlessly demonstrate the power, the benefit, the impact of what we do. Firstly, because it's the right thing, it's the sensible thing to do. But secondly, if we do not do that, I think we'll be hard pressed to hang on to our jobs over the course of the next 4 or 5 years. So what do I need you to do? I need you to ensure that social analytics are integrated throughout the evaluation journey. You need to start with smart objectives and research, track throughout and adapt your communications activities based on actionable insights. That all sounds terribly jargonistic, but again, I think Paul is going to make some more sense of that. We need to learn and evaluate against our objectives. And I think we also need to remember it's not just about the big numbers, it's also about learning from failure as well as success. And on that point, I hope today is a success. And through the wonders of modern technology, I want to introduce you to Alex Aitken. For those of you that don't know, Alex is Executive Director of Government Communications. He is a man, as some of you will know, who never shies away from telling it as it is, from giving his opinion, but also from supporting the importance of evaluation. So I hope you enjoy what Alex has to say. I hope you enjoy the afternoon. I hope you learn not just from Alex, but from each other and from some of our private sector colleagues that we have here today. Thank you.
Hi, could you tell us what your name is and where you work, please?
My name is Alex Aitken. I'm the Director of UK Government Communications and I work at 10 Downing Street.
Thank you. You may have seen the latest Amec survey on measurement, 2015. It refers to Twitter and Facebook analytics being just as prevalent as news reach these days. I just wonder what you think that shift in digital means for UK government communicators.
One of the issues I talked to the Amec conference about was the story of the development of the study of sports measurement, and famously in the film Moneyball, but in the UK in football and things like using Prozone. And what they found during that process is they were measuring all sorts of sports interactions, home runs and in football, headers and passes and so on. And there needs to be a point where we worry less about the particular channel measurement and always refer back to the objective. And the Evaluation Council, which is independent experts that come together to advise UK government communicators, has been really clear that you can measure all sorts of stuff, but you've got to be clear about how those channel measurements are helping your objectives. So I want people who do social media analytics to think about what is the objective, what is the behaviour change, or the increase in understanding we want for this policy or service, and then think how whatever they're measuring on Twitter, on Facebook, helps deliver that. I think practically we have found, and I think about the Scottish referendum, and certainly during the Scottish referendum, the view was that for stakeholders, Twitter was a more influential measure of how stakeholders and influencers view things, although there was a lot of noise in that from people who had pretty strongly held views and weren't going to change them. Facebook analytics were a better way of getting a more general sense of where the population was and what sort of things they wanted to consume from government in terms of public information.
We've heard this afternoon from Professor Jim McNamara of the University of Technology in Sydney, a very interesting piece of work around listening, and you organised some government departments to input to that, so we're included in the findings. I know that's going to be shared throughout GCS, so I just wonder now, what, as government communicators, are we going to do with that, learn from it and really benefit from it?
Social media is a great listening tool, but we've got to listen, and then we've got to act on the insight that comes from that listening. The DVLA have a very effective Twitter channel where they do respond to customers in real time. I sometimes get worried about some other government departments' uses of Twitter where they broadcast stuff out, and that's great in its own way. But what Jim McNamara has told us is we are spending too much time broadcasting and not enough time listening. He says it's about 80-20, and I want to move that more closely to 50-50. We're always going to have to tell people things, but we can use the insight, the data from social media to say, what are people saying? How do we respond? How do we build our policies and services and therefore our communications on the basis of how people are responding? What is working? This is what I call the Highland Cow test. But when we, as part of the Scotland Information Campaign, started using Highland Cow graphics in some of our social media, we got much bigger open rates, engagement rates, click-throughs, and so on for our material. And it's just using the rich data that people provide voluntarily on social media about what they like, what they don't like, and then changing our communications in the light of that information.
Thank you, Alex.
Good afternoon, everyone. I recognise a few faces, familiar faces here. For those who don't know me, my name is Paul Njoku. As Elaine said, I work in the Cabinet Office, part of the evaluation team. For the past 2 years, and this is for the benefit of our new suppliers, we've been leading what we call a cultural revolution across GCS. And the revolution really is about trying to make measurement and evaluation mainstream. Alex has spearheaded this piece of work, and for the benefits of those that don't know what I'm talking about, essentially one of the key projects I've been leading is called the Mandatory Evaluation Project, which is underpinned by 4 key strands. For most of you here, you would have seen what we call performance dashboards popping up in your director's office. We've been working at a strategic level with your directors, trying to get a set of performance dashboards and relevant metrics that helps demonstrate the impact of the work we do. The other key planks of the piece of work we've been doing is looking to try and raise what we call evaluation capability across GCS. Bolted onto that, we've been looking to dole out and provide evaluation training, and we've also created something called a Centre of Excellence, where we've created, in our experience, and what's been highly beneficial, an evaluation council that clearly is made up of experts from the public, private and not-for-profit sectors, members of whom are here today. These are just some of the organizations we've been working with across GCS, and clearly there's something that Professor Jim McNamara referred to in his book that has been referenced called the evaluation factor. And a lot of our achievements so far to date, and I'll come into some of those achievements, has been really down to the roles a lot of my evaluation or the evaluation champions have played in their respective departments. We've been doing a lot of work internally, and now we're looking to do a lot of work with you suppliers externally, which brings me on to why we're here today. And it's really about 3 things. This morning, for the first time, we launched the revised version of the Barcelona Principles 2.0. At this point, I'd like to acknowledge Barry, CEO for Amec, somewhere in the room. Hi, Barry, as well as Richard Magnall, who is also a member of the Amec board, as well as the CEO for Prime Research and indeed a member of our Evaluation Council. So today really is about supporting Amec's Measurement Month. This is one, as Elaine said, one of several activities taking place globally to promote that. We launched the Barcelona Principles, and I advise you to go onto the Amec website and clearly see what the new terms are referenced within that. But it's also billed as an interactive session. This is where you guys get involved, essentially. Elaine referenced the fact that we've got some stands, we've got some supplies here, and it's essentially an opportunity for you to preview some of the new tools and techniques on display in relation to social analytics. For the first time, we were involved in actually revising the Barcelona Principles, and from a client's perspective, it was important that we played an active role in that process. My view has been, in life, rather than back a horse, I like to sponsor the race. So clearly, one of the key asks for you, practitioners in the room today, is to really review what's on offer today, where possible, challenge and specify. What we heard this morning is we need to put an end to all those vanity metrics. And what we'd like to see is metrics coming through as part of this session today that are meaningful and relevant and helps tell that story or that journey. And it's also about contributing to what Sean referenced earlier, which is a new GCS evaluation framework we're looking to try and develop. Essentially, what we're looking to do here is, across all disciplines, have a common set of metrics that will now feed into the new evaluation framework we're looking to develop. So there'll be a role for you guys to play, particularly having visited some of the stands, and we'll be looking to send out a survey monkey and get your views as to what relevant metrics will need to go into the new framework. I've got a sneak preview of what that will look like, essentially, and essentially we heard about the importance of objectives. Clearly what we're looking to do here is to ensure that whatever we do feeds back into the overall objectives, which will then inform the comms objectives. The new framework itself will look to address a number of things. The lexicon still remain the same, but this is something I pinched from Professor Jim McNamara. But clearly at a meso level, we'll be looking to take care of all those classification issues, parking them neatly on each of the lexicons across each of the various lexicons in terms of inputs, outputs, outtakes, and outcomes. we'll be looking to have a common set of metrics that applies to each discipline for each of those. So clearly the work for you guys later on post this event will be to look through the basket of content metrics that the suppliers will be looking to provide us and decide which goes where, essentially. So what happens next? For the next 20 minutes or so, each of you will take time at each of the stands, listen to what some of the suppliers have to say. The idea beyond that is certainly to capture your views, and we'll be looking to use a SurveyMonkey to do that. Now, I've asked each of the suppliers to furnish me with a copy of all their metrics, and what I got back was a single page. I'll be going back to all the suppliers here today to request a full glossary of all their metrics, which I look to ping out to all of you in the room today as part of the next exercise. And essentially what we're looking to do there is park a lot of the metrics into the various buckets that will now feed the new evaluation framework. Hopefully that makes clear what we're looking to do here today. I'll hand back over to Elaine.
Great, thanks Paul. I think this is a really great opportunity for us to really influence what we get from our suppliers, to make absolutely clear what it is we need, what are the important metrics. Let's all agree on that so we can all, I don't want to say sing from the same hymn sheet, but we can all make sure that we know what the important metrics are and we're using them and we know how they fit into this bigger picture, and the frameworks are here to help us. So I think this is a really great opportunity. So this, as Paul said, the SurveyMonkey will come out in the next few days and it will ask you to select metrics. So please do take this opportunity to listen to the metrics that are on offer and think about, from your organisation's perspectives, what's important to you. There's no point Cabinet Office or DEFRA doing this in isolation. This needs to be a big joint exercise with all of us influencing what ends up on that final big list, because ultimately this is what we're asking our key suppliers to deliver for us. So really important and a great opportunity. Thank you, Paul. So that leads us straight into the session, which will now take place from about 2:30, which we're almost at, through till about 3:45. And we're going to be doing 4 sessions.